associated with that. Before row level security, you would have to create really an individual view for every salesperson and then pass that view to that salesperson so that they know to only query that view. And that means you can also not leverage, a single Power BI report, because every Power BI report would have to be built over their individual view. Row level security removes all of that complexity because it's operating over a single table. So we've created our users, we've created our sales table, same as before. We're going to load just a small data set. We've got 6 different sales. Half of them go to our first salesperson, half of them go to our second salesperson. And you can see we can view them all right here in that table. So first we'll grant select permissions again, making sure that each of them can actually go and query that table. And another great thing that we didn't do with our dynamic data masking, but just a good practice in general, is to create a specific schema for your security. So we're creating that security schema, which we'll then use to create our security predicates and security filters on. And that's just a best practice for helping to manage your security controls. You can take that security schema and only lock it down to just your administrators or just your security officers without having to worry about any other data that other people would have to access in that. So the first thing we're going to create is our security function. And this is actually what returns and actually performs the check of whether or not a user should be able to see that specific row. So basically, we're just checking, are you the sales rep for that row, or are you the manager who should be able to see all of the data? Very simple security policy filter. And then our security policy is actually what we apply on that table that enforces that filter. So your filter predicate that is actually the logic of what you should be able to see, and then your policy that enforces that. And then the final step is to actually grant select on our predicates or our managers to that predicate. And that just makes sure that it applies to them as individual users as well. So now we're ready to actually start seeing row level security in action. So we'll start by executing as our first salesperson. And as expected, I can only see the sales directly associated with me as the sales rep. And we'll see the same for sales person 2. Same thing, I only see the sales rep associated with me. And what's so powerful is about this is that this is applied at the data level. When this data is returned, the application is not even aware of any of the rows that are not being returned by the security policy. So anything trying to access that table has to go through that security policy, has to be checked by that security filter. So whether it's an external tool, a Power BI dashboard, or a user querying from the studio or SSIS or whatever tool they choose, that security filter is going to apply. So like I said before, it's really powerful with something like a Power BI dashboard, because I can now have a single dashboard over a single set of tables, but each user is only going to be able to see the data that they have access to, which is especially powerful when something like Power BI is passing through the credentials directly to the SQL pool, ensuring that that check happens all the way through and the data is always secure. And if I go and I execute as the manager, who, as we would expect, is able to see all of the sales data based off that security filter. And from here, you can just as easily turn that security policy off. And if I go back and I run as our sales 2, because we've turned that security policy off, I can now see all of the data, even as an individual salesperson. So like I said, in summary, row level security is really powerful for helping to really lower your security management costs by allowing you to have a single table with a single filter and policy, but one that can apply that policy and secure that data to any user and any tool coming in to query that table. So we've talked about some security, we've talked about some performance optimizations, we've loaded some data. Really what I want to do now is, it's going to be a bit harder to follow along with, but I just wanted to really close the loop and create a Power BI dashboard and connect it to our Azure Synapse SQL pool here. And really just to show that, we've done a lot of different things in these workshops. We've queried data, we've loaded it, we've processed it. And for, a lot of our users, creating that Power BI dashboard is one of the final steps. The ability to go through and actually build these reports and query and analyze that data in that visual environment and then